This is my video diary, and it's the night before I go to France and Belgium. So this trip I've been planning for about a year and a half, and what we're doing, me and a couple of friends, we're going to be retracing my ancestor who fought and died at the Battle of the Somme, and we're coming up to 100 years ago, and the battle took place in July 1916, so we're not too far off that. So my ancestor was called Thomas Victory, and he was 37 years old, and he joined the British Army in 1915, and he joined at a time where World War I had been raging for about a year, and there was pretty much stalemate in France and Belgium, and the British Army was, they were in a bad way at the time. So to encourage men to join, they said if you join with your friends, you could fight with your friends, and these units became known as the PALS battalions. So my ancestor was called Thomas Victory. He was 37 years old, and he was born in Barnsley, Yorkshire. He was a miner, and he joined up in 1915, and I expect he probably would have joined up with his friends, and he joined a unit called the Barnsley PALS, 13th Battalion of the 94th Brigade. And on the first day of the Somme, they went into action at the Surrey, at the northern end of the Somme battlefield. And unfortunately, he was killed, and his body was never found. So over the last year, I've been doing lots of research, looking at old diaries, maps. So tomorrow we head to France and Belgium, where we're going to be cycling on the first day, cycling about 80 miles of trench from the Belgian coast right down to Vimy Ridge, which is in the trenches. And part of the trip we're going to be retracing Thomas Victory's route to the battlefield of the Somme, where we're then going to go to his frontline trench and look out and see where him and the rest of his men went over. So it's going to be quite an emotional trip, but I'm really looking forward to it, and I'll see you in France. So we've just arrived in the western tip of Belgium, and we're at Newport now. So today we're going to cycle down the western front trench lines. We're going to be going through all the major battlefield sites. It's about 70 miles altogether. Starting in the western tip of Belgium, and then we're going to go down. We're going to finish at Vimy Ridge, which is in France. So enjoy. This is Wood, and we're about 10 miles from the Somme battlefield, and on the 30th of June this is where Thomas Victory camped with his mates before walking to the battlefield in the evening of the 30th of June, and they walked and they spent all night getting there. This wood's a private wood now, so you can't actually go in, and the flat land just over here is where they would practice going over. And then the evening was a very warm, very summer's evening, and they left about 7:30, and they arrived in the trenches at about 4 in the morning. So this is the frontline trench of Thomas Victory, and in the distance there is the frontline trench of the Sheffield battalions, and behind me is probably where the 13th Battalion would have come up, and their objectives is the village of Surrey, which you can't see. It's just over the corner there. So at 7:30 the whistle went, and the Accrington PALS and the Sheffield battalions came out into no man's land here and suffered horrendous casualties. About 7:45 the orders came through to the 13th Battalions and the 14th Battalions, who were just behind them, to resume the attack. And what happened was, Major Tom Guest stood on the parapet amongst all his men. He was about 54 years old, and he would have looked out into this no man's land, and he turned around and he said to his men, remember to uphold the honour of the old town, boys, and remember I'm the first over. And Major Tom Guest climbed out of the parapet along this line, pistol in hand, whistle, climbed up the ladder, and the men of the 13th Battalion, coming from this angle out into no man's land, followed Major Tom Guest, my ancestor, Private Thomas Victory, out into no man's land to attack that position on the ridge there. And they went out into legend. And Thomas Victory, my ancestor, was never found again, neither was Major Tom Guest. And their names are on the Fiat Valve Memorial, which we're going to have a look at in a minute. So we're just going to go now and have a look at the trenches, which the Accrington Pals went over. It's a very, very moving place. It's very quiet, and I can't imagine the destruction which would have happened here. But it's a lovely summer's day, which probably would have been the 1st of July, 7:30. You know, young men from the Pals battalions in Barnsley, and the carnage and destruction was immense, absolutely immense. When it was finished, about 40 minutes into the attack, the officers called it off. Afterwards, in that evening, the British Army generals, they wrote about the Barnsley battalions and the brigade they were in, and they said they'd never seen such bravery from that brigade that morning. Men just piling over the top and heading into the attack, and yeah, it's hard to think about really. Now this dip in the ground, these are the trenches. So men would have been here, and this is where the Accrington Pals and the 14th Battalion went over, and this is no man's land. And this is where the boys of those battalions went over. I'm just going to walk along now. Walk along there, the frontline trenches, and this is Sheffield Memorial Park. It's where it's where the boys whose bodies were found, it's their memorial basically. Just walking out of the trench now. This is literally walking out into no man's land. Thomas Victory's body was never found, so his name is on this monument, and it's a monument for the men with no grave.